Okay, an interesting thing to talk about here. Listen, I'm going to get into some free agency related stuff with the Cowboys as well. I'm not auditioning for a job at First Take here, right? I'm not fully just going to talk about the drama, but hey, drama can be interesting and it's the off season. So let's talk about what the hell is going on with the Dallas Cowboys. Well, it all stemmed from a comment that DeMarcus Lawrence, former Dallas Cowboys edge rusher, very good player and has played for quite a while with the Cowboys, who has recently signed a deal with the Seahawks. He said this in an interview.
Dallas is my home. I made my home there. My family lives there. I'm forever going to be there. But, I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. So, yeah.
That's a pretty damning thing coming from somebody who, again, just to be clear, was with the Cowboys for 11 years. When he got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys back in 2014, Obama was president. That's how long it has been since he has been with the Dallas Cowboys. Him saying something kind of that harsh, okay, that's notable, right? Micah Parsons took exception to this. He said, this is what rejection and envy look like. This is some clown you-know-what, which I have to say, I know Micah Parsons isn't everyone's cup of tea. He definitely has a vocal personality. If I'm a Cowboys fan, I like seeing this from Micah Parsons. Him kind of standing up for the organization he plays for and the team he plays for. A former player saying something like this. This is kind of what you want in someone who's supposed to be a leader, right? That's just how I see it. We can agree to disagree if you see it differently, but I don't really have an issue with that. Who did have an issue with that was DeMarcus Lawrence. He responded to that tweet from Micah Parsons saying, calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left, with an emoji at the end, the devil emoji thing. Listen, again, this is, they're squabbling with each other. It is what it is. I think that if you're criticizing Micah Parsons for standing up for his team, you just don't like Micah Parsons, which is fine. I also think it is a little weird for DeMarcus Lawrence to be saying this publicly, but it's also maybe a little telling that he's willing to say something like this publicly, given how long he was with the organization. Neither one have tweeted since then, but it is an interesting thing. After that, another tweet kind of made the rounds. Jordan Lewis's tweet, which said, I'm sorry, y'all, this is about a decade of frustration. I'm done. For those who don't know, Jordan Lewis played for the Cowboys for a while, has now joined the Jacksonville Jaguars in free agency. However, this tweet there's a lot more context to it. It sounds very bad when you just look at it, but there's more to it than just this. If you look at a series of tweets before this, I guess he was getting into an argument with Eagles fans talking about who's better between him and Cooper DeJean, which is like totally a Twitter argument that happens, right? And he kind of argued back and then said, I'm sorry, y'all, this is about a decade of frustration. I'm done. Seemingly talking more about feeling like he has been disrespected and it's unfair that people are saying that Cooper DeJean is better than him, not really talking about the Dallas Cowboys at all. So I can understand why when I first saw that tweet, I was like, oh, wow, that's shocking. But once you look more into it, there's actually a lot more context that I think should be taken into account. It isn't about the Dallas Cowboys. I have to say, Jordan Lewis could have tweeted it a little bit more clearly if you're going to tweet that by itself. Lewis went on to criticize some sort of clickbait media sites. And listen, as a media site, it is your job to look into this like how I looked into this. It's kind of the bare minimum you should do, and it's fair to criticize that. Also for Jordan Lewis, though, you could be clarifying things yourself as well. You could, maybe have tweeted it differently. He has deleted that tweet as well, so I'll give him credit for that. But ultimately, the DeMarcus Lawrence comments I did find fascinating because it does pose an interesting question, which is he's saying that he'll never win a Super Bowl in Dallas. Is Dallas trying to win a Super Bowl is something that people are asking. I went to kind of look at just some certain stats. One stat that jumped out at me, I'm sure many of you have heard of it, is that the last Dallas Cowboys free agent that was worth over $6 million was Greg Hardy. 10 years ago was the last time they signed a free agent over $6 million. Gerald McCoy was right at $6 million. They haven't spent more than that in a decade, which is kind of crazy. Why aren't they spending? They're the Dallas Cowboys. They have all of this money, and they have some cap space as well. Well, I looked it up, and again, keep in mind when it comes to spending in football, it's often a lot more about cash than it is about just cap space. Cap space is essentially an accounting tool that you can work around, but cash is cash. Teams only are going to put so much money into their football club, so that's something that you have to pay more attention to than just cap space. And so I decided to check, okay, cash-wise, how much have the Dallas Cowboys spent year in and year out? They don't spend a ton on free agents, but they do spend a ton on players that they draft. Very rarely do they let players go in free agency, especially major players go in free agency. You look at the chart next to me. Despite no free agents this year, essentially, they've still spent sixth most in the league, as in the cash they will spend in 2025 is sixth most in football as of today. That can change. More contracts will be signed. It could be higher at the end of this. It could be lower at the end of this. But again, when you pay a lot of your own players, this is the kind of thing that happens. And you see in 2024 and in 2023, they were above average. They did have 1 year in 2022 where they were among the bottom of the league, but that was probably to make up for the fact that in 2021 and in 2020, they were top 3 in the league both of those years. So do the Dallas Cowboys spend money? Yeah, they do. They're above average in spending in the past 6 years that I looked back to see this. So it's not quite fair to say that they're cheap or that they don't care about winning. It's a strategic decision that they have decided to make, or maybe a financial one, I don't know. But it's a decision they've decided to make to pay their homegrown players and not go out and sign free agents. I think you can still be critical of, like, they probably should be, adding some smaller pieces at the very least to this team. But it just isn't fair to say that they're not spending money. So what do we make of all of this? Well, from the DeMarcus Lawrence thing, the question you have to ask is this a sign of a bigger issue, or is this simply just one disgruntled employee having some issues, right? I don't know. It's one instance. It's impossible to say. You can have your own conclusions, and feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below on those kind of things. But I'm just going to say, I don't know. It's one situation. I can't read too much into it. Do the Dallas Cowboys not spend money in free agency? No, they spend a good amount of money in throughout the season. Yes, they don't spend a lot of money in free agency, but it's not because they're not spending money in being cheap. The other aspect that has to be talked about is how the Joneses themselves are the ones running this team. They don't sign a general manager to run the team, and that's totally a fair criticism. That probably shouldn't be how they operate a football team. They should instead probably hire a GM who is, a football guy to be focusing on this stuff instead. That would make more sense to me personally. The way they underwent their head coaching hiring, that's a fair criticism. So I think there are valid critiques to put on this Dallas Cowboys organization. And hey, maybe you can say, oh yeah, sure, you're paying the homegrown stars because people have jerseys of those guys, but you're not actually trying to just get the best players and win. Maybe there's something in that too. I don't know. But yeah, interesting stuff. So I want to make a video. As always with this stuff, a lot of things are not getting, things are getting said in misleading ways. People aren't really looking for the truth, but also there's some interesting stuff here. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.